Clockwork Orange is the very definition of a cult classic. It's timeless, has incredible rewatch value, and the scenes are beyond memorable. So grab an ice cold glass of milk and let's get into a little bit of this ultra violence. Hey y'all, it's Nate. Welcome back to my little corner of YouTube. This is Cult Classic Commentary, a series where I talk about a cult classic and give you commentary on it because
I like to video the old films now and again.
Today we are discussing the 1972 Stanley Kubrick cult classic, A Clockwork Orange. So if you haven't seen it yet and you do not want spoilers, save this video and come back after you do. You are about to hear my thoughts on A Clockwork Orange, but of course I want to hear yours, so feel free to drop your thoughts below if you do want to participate in the conversation, and give this video a like before you go, or you just might experience some of that good old ultra violence. The first time I saw A Clockwork Orange, I think I had the same reaction that everybody else had when they first saw it. What the hell did I just watch? But I knew that I wanted to see it again because this is not the type of movie that you watch one time and say, oh, that was interesting, and then move on. This is a movie you're going to watch several different times. I've now seen it twice, and I'm going to see it many more times because, as I mentioned, it has incredible rewatch value. And that's honestly part of what makes something a good cult classic, right? Is that you have to be able to watch it over and over again, and it has to be able to span across generations. This came out in 1972. I wasn't even alive yet. I wasn't even a thought in 1972. With the movie as avant-garde as A Clockwork Orange, I didn't want to put this video in a linear form because the movie is in no way linear. I guess aside from the main story, but at its heart of hearts, A Clockwork Orange is organized chaos. So this video is kind of a little bit of organized chaos because that's what makes it amazing. Alex, or inmate 655321 as he was known to be called, meets a fate that some people might view as cruel. But after seeing this film twice now, I'm more inclined to say that Alex got exactly what he deserved. He's an older teenager. I put him at about 16 to 18 because we know that he's still in high school, although he never goes to school. He is still of school age. And for all intents and purposes, he manipulates, uses, and straight up abuses everybody in his life, from strangers to his parents. Him and his friends go around tormenting and robbing people. In fact, of that little clique, that gang of him and his friends, he's the leader. And on top of that, he terrorizes that same group of friends. So they're also afraid of him. And that's why they eventually end up setting things up so that he goes to prison for 14 years, or at least gets sentenced to 14 years. Now we know he only ends up serving 2 of those, but when he gets out, his friends are cops. They did a complete 180 on his ass, and they get physical revenge on him. None of the adults in his life have any ounce of control over Alex. His parents are completely aloof. They know that he's terrible. Everybody knows he's terrible, but they don't have the care to, or maybe they don't have the power to do anything about the fact that this boy is running amok over this city. He just runs circles around them. His social worker / parole officer tries his best to have a little bit of control, but honestly, he's just a complete weirdo and probably doesn't care too much about Alex enough to actually make him do better.
Evening's the great time, isn't it, Alex boy?
Cup of the old chai, sir?
No time.
Even once he goes to prison, that religious figure who he actually does end up kind of befriending, and who I actually do think has Alex's best interest in mind, he's not in control of that relationship. Alex is in control of that relationship. And Alex manipulates him into bringing up that experiment. He plants that seed in his mind of, oh, there's this experiment that can rehabilitate people who are in prison. He plants that seed.
This new thing they're all talking about, Father. About this new treatment that gets you out of prison in no time at all. And make sure you never get back in again. How about putting me in for this new treatment?
And then he finesses his way into being the one that gets chosen to be in the experiment. And even in the end, when it looks like karma is finally coming for his ass, in the form of that man torturing him with Beethoven's Ninth, he jumps out of a window and ends up gaining sympathy and finesses his way back into the good graces of people. And as a result of that stay in the hospital, he ends up completely undoing the experiment and gets to go back to being his regular self. So it always works out for Alex in the end, every single time. This is completely unrelated, but he looks exactly like Evan Peters, or should I say Evan Peters looks like him. I almost thought it was him until I realized, wait, this came out in 1972 and Evan Peters looks like that now, so this can't be Evan Peters, and turns out it's not. Actually, this entire main cast is very attractive. All of the boys that he runs with, they're all very pretty boys. All of that said, there is a part of me that just has to give Alex some grace. He very much is a product of his environment. He lives in an extremely dystopian society. It doesn't doesn't quite feel post-apocalyptic, but it's something is going on in this city. And it seems like everybody's just okay with the fact that things are like this. Nobody questions anything other than, I guess, the violence, but no one questions anything about how crazy this city is. In this world that Alex lives in, there is no law and there is no order. So can we really blame him for how he turned out when his mom dresses like this to go to the factory? What factory does this woman work at where she has to wear this wig and this outfit? Somebody please explain. I'm confused about the factory. What are they making? I also think there's something to be said about the moral implication of this experiment, or the treatment as they refer to it, because basically what they end up doing is reprogramming his mind into making him physically ill whenever he thinks about ultra violence or ultra sexual things. It makes him a well-balanced individual and gives him an aversion to sex and violence. This reprogramming immediately reminded me of Pavlov's classical conditioning theory. I know that involves a positive stimuli. You know, he gave the dogs food every time they heard the bell, so eventually they associated the bell with food even when there was no food. And in this sense, it's kind of negative. He thinks about violence, he thinks about sex, and then he gets a negative reaction, which is the aversion, or feeling like he needs to throw up. However, another experiment that this reminded me of was lobotomies, which we all know is where doctors take an ice pick and essentially surgical hammer, stick it up somebody's nose, and chisel away until they got rid of all the bad parts of a person's brain in order to get a desired reaction from that person. And doctors perform lobotomies to get rid of things like schizophrenia, depression, behaving badly as a teenager, and of course, homosexuality. Because we know how homosexuality is always being cured by lobotomies. And as we know, a lot of the time, lobotomies did not get rid of anything. They just made a person so docile because they got in there and shook things around in their brain and removed pieces of the brain that are kind of important to you having a personality. Essentially, they ended up turning people into vegetables, because who would have known that ice picking parts of your brain is a bad idea? This world that we live in is not perfect by any means, but I thank God that I did not live in a time where doctors used to say that there were ghosts in your blood, or perform lobotomies, or used to burn you at the stake for a common cold. Like, I just have to be thankful for that. Let's get into a little bit of the art and design. I absolutely love the set design in A Clockwork Orange. This time period, which they don't actually specify, but to me feels like late 60s, early 70s, is actually one of my favorite time periods. I love the color, I love the abstract art, I love how carefree people were during this time. People just weren't afraid to be bold, and I mean actually being bold, not pretending to be bold like a lot of people do today. People weren't afraid to be themselves. Everything was carefree. And sure, I'm probably romanticizing that era because I didn't grow up in it, but it just seems like such a great time to be alive. Aside from the racism, of course. I mean, it could also be that I grew up watching a lot of Austin Powers, so maybe that's why I romanticize that era, but nevertheless I do. And I don't know why, but I get such strong Andy Warhol vibes from the art in this film. Andy's most famous works weren't even the sexual ones, at least not to my knowledge. I know he's very popular for having the pop art and the Campbell Soup series, but he also did make some highly sexual art. In fact, he had a series that was called Sex Parts, which I don't think I can share here with y'all, but you should Google it and check it out. But again, the boldness of the art makes it feel like Warhol was an inspiration. Giant penis sculptures, the poster of the woman that Alex had on his wall. Sexual, yes, but more importantly, art. And the timelines would work because Andy Warhol was popular in the 1960s, and again, this movie came out in 1972. In line with the art and set designs is, of course, the cinematography. I mean, the film both opens and closes with a bright red screen. Maybe to represent right from the jump that ultra violence that we were getting ready to see. In the beginning, Alex was a menace, and in the end, he was about to get right back to being a menace because the treatment had worn off or he was cured of it. I also really love this continuous shot of when Alex was walking through what I'm going to call a swap meet, because that's kind of what it looks like. A place where people just go and buy a bunch of different types of things. He's dressed like Willy Wonka, walking through his chocolate factory, and the colors, the outfit, just the visuals in that scene are so good. Watch him move kind of through this tight space so smoothly without a care in the world. Also, shout out to the 2001: A Space Odyssey Easter egg in this film. Another beautiful continuous shot that I want to mention is when they're leading Alex from the prison to take him to go do the treatment, and the guard is just walking him through. Kind of, again, it's more tight shots and it's just shot so beautifully. And then we have this long shot of Alex's bedroom before he gets into the good old in out with the ladies from the swap meet. I recall a long shot like this in Poor Things, and I actually talked about it in my video on Poor Things. Why did we spend so long on Emma Stone's feet? I know there's a community out there that's very happy about that scene, but what I want to know is, like, why was I in it? Why was I chosen to be a part of the community in that moment, in that scene? I don't really know what that was. It was such a long scene, and it was so silent that I legitimately thought my Wi-Fi had cut out. I was like, oh, Clearly my movie has stopped running because I've been looking at Emma Stone's feet for 10 minutes, which I think that movie is a must watch. If you're interested in my thoughts on it, I'll link it below. But yeah, that very long Poor Things shot was also in a moment that was highly sexual, much like the one in A Clockwork Orange, so I immediately thought of that. I wonder if Poor Things was influenced at all by A Clockwork Orange, because the dystopian societies, like I do see a lot of similarities there. And finally, I really love that panning shot that we get of the writer in his house, first with him and his wife, and then obviously a couple of years later, it's him and his bodyguard or his health aide, whoever it is. Obviously, music is a huge part of this film. Alex has an almost unhealthy obsession with Ludwig van Beethoven. Alex, for lack of a better phrase, does the good old in out with himself while listening to Beethoven's Ninth. If that's not an obsession, I don't know what is. He then hears this woman singing it at the milk bar, and this is one of few times in this film that he actually shows some damn humanity, because his friend kind of taunts the woman, heckles her, boos her, and he's like, hey, not while she's singing Beethoven's Ninth, like, we don't do that. And of course, once he starts the treatment, they end up playing Beethoven's Ninth in one of the videos, and the song gets tainted for him in his eyes.
Are you referring to the background score?
Yes!
You've heard Beethoven before?
Yes! So you're keen on music? Yes!
I think that's what actually ends up pushing him over the ledge, is that he feels like they disgraced Beethoven in some kind of way for using such a beautiful song to give him such a negative treatment. And then of course it ends up being used to torture him later. They also played the graduation song when he was getting ready to go get the treatment, which I thought was interesting, like he's graduating to be a better person. I also know that this milk bar holds some type of significance. I just don't really know what it is. The film starts there, and Alex mentions that this is where they go before they get into the festivities of the night.
And we sat in the Korova milk bar trying to make up our razoo dogs what to do with the evening. The Korova milk bar sold Milk Plus Velocet, or Synthemesk, or Drencrum, which is what we were drinking. This would sharpen you up and make you ready for a bit of the old ultra-violence.
So it's really kind of where everything in the movie and everything in this city gets kicked off. This is where they go to pregame. And while we never officially see anyone interact in the milk bar, we understand that this is a meetup spot for these people. I cannot talk about A Clockwork Orange without talking about the ultra-sexual nature of the film. Some might consider this softcore porn. From the lady stretching in an obviously sexual way, to the giant penis that Alex uses to unalive her, to these women licking on these obviously phallic popsicles. And of course, as I mentioned before, the poster on Alex's bedroom wall. So I think viewing it as, you know, softcore porn is one way that you could view it, but you could also view this as a movie about sexual exploration, which was a big deal in this time period. And hey, I'm all about sexual exploration, so long as you do it safely, because some people out here are not being safe. There's also this very porn-like theme of incest.
What's happened to yours, my little sister? Come with Uncle and hear all proper.
Not feeling too good again this morning, Dad.
There, Mother, it's all right.
Moving on to the ultra bizarre. If you know me, you know I love avant-garde. Something being a little strange does not bother me at all. I just want to point these things out. All the women in this movie wear these colorful wigs, these colorful curly wigs. I talked about the mom wigs, but she's not the only one. Even the women in the milk bar statues wear these wigs. In fact, the only person that didn't wear a wig like this was the woman who was singing Beethoven's Ninth, and I'm sure there's some significance in that. She's the only woman that Alex saw as worthy. Then there was the social worker drinking the denture water. Why? Why did he do that? He just kept drinking it. And then, of course, the milk coming out of the woman's breast at the milk bar, which that's obviously a thing, just not in this way, because that's whole cow milk that's coming out of there. And then there's the pure chaos that is commencing when Alex is being checked in the prison.
One shirt, blue, collar attached.
Have you been receiving medical treatment for any serious illness?
No, sir.
One pair of boots, black leather zippered, worn.
Are you now? Or have you ever been? They hold us at all.
No, sir.
Right. The mothballs, mister.
Mothball, sir.
That's actually one of my favorite scenes because it's just so chaotic. And then at the end, after they make him take everything off, he's like, okay, throw the mothballs in there. All right, we're good to go. And that's just it. I wanted to briefly touch on the vaudeville and minstrel show inspiration that I see in this film. If you don't know, vaudeville was a type of live stage performance, kind of like a variety show in play form. And minstrel shows were similar to that, but minstrel shows were also where they did blackface. That's kind of where blackface was popularized. These types of performances were irreverent, cartoony, and exaggerated. And A Clockwork Orange is all of those things. The minstrel show thing really clicked for me when I saw they had the figure of the blackface in the movie, right at that scene in the beginning. This is not a critique of blackface being in the film. Please don't be that person. This movie came out in 1972. Keep in mind that MLK wasn't assassinated until 1968. Racism was still very fresh in America in 1972, so something like blackface being in a movie like this is not that surprising to me, nor can I be mad about it when that is the history of America. Especially when you consider that the scene that these blackface figures were seen in was a theater and minstrel shows were a theatrical experience. A Clockwork Orange is such an adventure. I think the first time I saw this movie, I was just in pure shock. After seeing it the second time, I'm like, I appreciate the beauty of everything in this film. I love it. Like I said, I'm gonna watch it again. But let me know your thoughts on this cult classic. I'm not sure when I'm gonna be back with another movie in this series. Honestly, this is just a series I kind of do when I have downtime, when I don't have specific things planned. I'm like, there's so many cult classics that I could cover, so that's why I do this. And since I just got back from my very much needed spring break, I figured this would be the first video that I do to come back. But if you have a cult classic that you want me to watch and cover, let me know in the comments. Until then, make sure you stay away from that ultra violence. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye! This is almond milk, by the way. So it actually does taste good, unlike disgusting cow's milk, which is gross. Classical conditional theory, okay? I just call it Pavlov. Well, I mean, Ludwig. Why is Beethoven's name Ludwig? What a weird ass name. Of course, I cannot talk. Of course, talk. I'm gonna block that word out. Calling him little sick. Oh, I'm just gonna put all those clips in there. I don't need to say them. This scene that these black.
Wake up in Pasadena, nobody asked where we from. Cold-blooded conversation, ADD told me to run. Why he got too many coats, Cali got too many sons. Home with the famous and broke, broken and lonely a bunch.